So Anthony, tell us what you guys have uncovered at EPA.
Well, Jennifer, the EPA is well known for its wasteful spending. Now I think our team has found how it's hit a new low. The EPA wastes millions of tax dollars on animal tests for outdated, misleading, and wasteful air pollution, ozone, animal experiments. Think 1970s and 80s style stuff. It's still going on. We're talking about 20,000 animals a year, millions of tax dollars, multi-million-dollar programs. We're talking about forcing bunnies to inhale diesel truck exhaust. We're talking about terrifying pregnant moms with loud noises, electroshocking babies. We're talking about force-feeding mice and rats to the point of obesity, lard and coconut oil to artificially fatten them up and expose them to these outdated pollution, EPA tests. Millions of dollars, taxpayers have no idea about what's going on, so we've launched a campaign to clean it up.
These pictures are pretty horrifying when you look at the conditions that these animals are in. I mean, rats in tiny tubes with their mouths around a hose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's truly hit a new low. And we've launched a new campaign to coincide with Tax Month, when most Americans are paying federal taxes for this waste, fraud, and abuse, to educate and inform and work with Congress to clean it up. We're calling it Dump EPA's Toxic Waste. We believe that the waste is now the wasteful spending that the EPA is doing on these outdated air pollution and animal tests for the rats, the mice, the bunnies, you name it.
Yeah, you said outdated, 70s and 80s type stuff. What do you mean by that?
So we're talking about air pollution experiments, subjecting them to ozone conditions, the kind of issues that, Jennifer, we would have heard about and that were in vogue years ago on these issues, such as the ozone layer and so forth. The EPA has been entrenched in this for a long time, and now it's coming to surface that they're still spending our money, your money, my money, on these tests that are totally misleading, are not useful for cleaning up the real environmental problems. Misleading and outdated experimentation.
You were talking about multi-million. You know, we're so used to hearing billion, trillion when we talk about federal spending and the federal budget. But this is more money than most Americans are ever going to see in their lifetimes. That's being spent. I mean, this is a lot of money that could be going to other things.
And it's even worse than you think, because we know pretty much the floor. We know what we found so far. We know what they admit to in following the paper trail, looking through the government disclosure reports, the databases, the receipts. I mean, millions of dollars alone just for these experiments that are abusing 20,000 animals a year at the EPA. We know the floor. We don't know the ceiling. It's probably millions more than we've even suspected.
Do you find that at a lot of these agencies, it's hard to follow the money, that money's tucked away in different places that may be called other things that isn't what you would expect it to be? Is that
Absolutely.
the case?
Transparency is a nightmare. Transparency is an absolute problem across the board at these agencies, as you helped expose with the VA, the Department of Veterans Affairs. Transparency was a major problem in terms of knowing what they were spending, what they were doing, how long they've been doing it for, how long has this been on the taxpayers' back. The EPA is having very similar problems as far as we can tell so far.
It's interesting, you know, you talk about outdated research at the EPA. That was part of the issue at the VA, that they had not come up with anything really groundbreaking in a long time. Is this a case where, you know, the argument with entitlements is that you can never take them away? Once people have gotten theirs, they never want to get rid of it.
What's the saying in Washington? The hardest thing to do is to cut spending. The good news is we do have polling data now. New polling data in the last month or two, February of 2018, polling data showing that a strong majority of Republicans, up close to 79% of Republican voters, want to cut this wasteful spending on the animal tests at the EPA. Close to 70% of Democrats want the same thing. There's a strong bipartisan majority of anybody who has an interest in this, which is everybody. Anybody who pays federal taxes has a stake in this, and the polling data shows they want to clean this up.
Was the polling you did just on the EPA issue or animal testing generally?
We've looked at polling and conducted polling across the board on these government agencies, like we did with the VA, But this one specifically, with those high majority numbers, was specifically for the EPA animal tests. Close to 80% of Republicans, close to 70% of Democrats want to slash this wasteful spending.
Does it surprise you that more Republicans are interested in slashing this spending at the EPA than Democrats?
It was interesting, and it's one of those things that maybe you'd say shocking but not surprising, because the issue has never been presented to Republicans, conservatives, taxpayer watchdogs in this manner. They've never been framed as the real problem, that it is wasteful government spending. So we're not talking about the old style cosmetic companies, pharmaceutical companies. That might be what center-right conservatives are used to hearing about with this issue, but that's not what's going on. We're talking about the EPA here. We're talking about federal tax money. Clearly, this is not the budget priority. Any Republican, certainly 80% of the Republicans, understand that.
It's interesting. So they're not thinking of it in terms of PETA. It's these are my tax dollars. Exactly,
and it's a new way of looking at an old issue. And what's shocking is what the EPA is doing, and what's surprising is how long it's been going on.
Yeah.
And when they look at it from this perspective and present it with our new campaign, we hope that message will penetrate.
So you're sending a message in the Research Triangle where this is going on in North Carolina. Tell us about your billboard.
So we launched a new campaign to coincide with tax month. It's April. This is when Americans pay their taxes. We want to show them where their money's going. So first we find the waste. Think about FED. Find, expose, defund. That's our motto. We find the waste, we ferret it out the paper trail, we expose the waste. That's what we're doing right here with the media, launching the investigations, and also to take the message right to the EPA's own backyard. We've launched a billboard, EPAsucks.org, EPAsucks.org. Why EPA sucks? Well, it's a play on words with respect to what they're doing in forcing bunnies to inhale diesel exhaust fumes. They are sucking diesel exhaust fumes. We're bringing that message during tax month to the EPA's own backyard.
Yeah. What's the reaction been?
It's only been, well, we're hoping to break the news here. It's only been in the last day or so, but the reaction's been, I had no idea the EPA was doing that. I'm not down with this. This is not how I want my tax money spent. So far, so good. Members of Congress have also taken to this message as well, on both the left and the right. Representative Matt Gaetz has been helping to lead the charge to clean this up on the House floor. Talking about fat-shaming animals with these obesity tests that the EPA is doing. Who would have thought? So the reaction's been positive.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm sure this polling data that you have certainly helps with members of Congress, right? Because, I mean, it's got to be popular to go home, particularly fiscal conservatives or people who are sensitive to abusing animals, to go home and say, look, I'm taking care of this because we should not be funding this. Easy
Surely
argument
there's
for you?
something in it for everyone. Taxpayer watchdogs can clean up the waste at the EPA, of all places. Liberal Democrats, progressives, animal lovers, they're not down with seeing bunnies being gassed in wasteful and misleading tests either. Something in it for everybody, and members on both the left and the right.
Yeah, and they control the purse strings.
They sure do. They control the purse strings at the EPA.